You're listening to the Otis Jiry channel.
In the Aftermath, Five Nights at Freddy's Forgotten Lore by Alex Sorrow, narrated by Otis Jiry. I finally got the nerve to quit from this horrible job, and the manager was actually letting me leave. From what I'd seen from him so far, all the rules about bad-mouthing the company and staying until 6 a.m. every night, I didn't think he'd actually accept my resignation letter. He did, however, convince me to stay for one last week while they tracked down a replacement security guard. One last week at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. I barely had the nerve to tell him that I was quitting, let alone to decline a final few nights. So, regretfully, I arrived at Freddy's at midnight and headed straight for the security office for my shift. As I sat alone in the cramped, dimly lit security room as my shift began, I stared at the monitor blankly. My replacement, they have no idea what they're getting into. The company, Fazbear Entertainment, would never tell them the cold reality of what happens at night. I had almost been caught by the animatronics in my first few nights, but I'm a quick learner, thank God. Really, working here was a very poor career choice. It was then, sitting, thinking, and pitying the new guy, that I got an idea to help him out. With no time to waste, I eagerly picked up the phone and pressed my fingers to the buttons. Once I had it set up, I began to speak into the mouthpiece. Hello? Hello? I wanted to record a message for you to help you get settled in on your first night. Once I had finished recording my message, I hung up the phone and relaxed a little in my chair while I thought about what to say for my next message. Surely I had forgotten to tell them something. Maybe about the door lights or Foxy? Should I have told them how to turn on the camera lights? Suddenly I bolted upright. The cameras! I forgot all about them. I quickly lifted up the monitor and peered at the screen. Both Bonnie and Chica were missing from the show stage. Confused, I looked at my watch. 12:42 a.m. They never started moving this early before. Bonnie was in the back room, and Chica was near the restrooms, still a fair distance away. I checked Pirate Cove to see that the curtain was still pulled. Sighing in relief, I picked up the phone again and prepared to record another message. Hello? Hello? Well, if you're hearing this, then you made it to day 2. Congrats. I won't talk quite as long this time since Freddy and his friends tend to become more active as the week progresses. Finally done recording that message, I checked the cameras again, only to see that Bonnie and Chica had moved and that the show stage was empty. Frantically searching through the restaurant, I found Bonnie in the supply closet, an odd favorite of his, but Chica was nowhere to be found. I began to sweat, looking at camera after camera. I found that Foxy was peeking out of his curtain at Pirate Cove. Realization finally dawned on me, and I threw down the monitor and hit the door light. Chica was right outside. Without wasting any time, I shut the door before she could get in. I hadn't realized it, but I had been holding a breath. I exhaled deeply and stared out the window at the animatronic. It was strange, but what I had said in the first phone call was true. I didn't really blame the animatronics. There were rumors going around about them being haunted, but I didn't believe any of it. Even if I did, I wouldn't have been allowed to talk about it. Staring at Chica, I began to think about what they would do if I allowed any of them into the office. Close examination of past records has stated that they would probably try to stuff me into an empty costume. What if they couldn't find an empty costume? Suddenly, I gasped as an idea came to me. What if I pretended to be an empty costume? Excited, I picked up the phone to record another message. I was sure that whoever was replacing me would love all of these messages. Maybe they'd help them get unsettled. Hello? Hello? Hey, you're doing great. Most people don't last this long. I silently gasped and quickly corrected myself. I mean, they usually move on to other things by now. I talked about my idea to pretend to be an empty costume, but halfway through the call, I realized that if they thought you were an empty costume, they'd probably try to shove a metal skeleton inside of you. Oops, bad idea on my part. I hung up, feeling slightly ashamed, and checked the cameras. Chica was lurking in the east hallway, and Bonnie was standing backstage. I switched to Pirate Cove and froze. Foxy was gone. I had been so busy recording the messages that I had forgotten to check the cameras. I quickly hit the door button, shut the door, and looked at the cameras. I think Freddie was in the kitchen, and Chica was moving closer. She was in the east hallway corner now. Foxy was running down the west hallway. I could hear his footsteps in the otherwise deafening silence. I checked my power. 7%. I couldn't help but stare at that percentage. It couldn't be true. I couldn't possibly be out of power now. I thought of meeting my end to those cursed machines, and tears welled up in my eyes. I picked up the phone as Foxy began to pound on my door. Pressing a few buttons, it began to record, and I began to talk, somehow managing to keep my voice even, though a small note of despair crept into my tone. Hello? Hello? Hey, wow. Day 4. I knew you could do it. Hey, listen, I may not be around to send you a message tomorrow. Foxy was pounding harder, refusing to leave. It's been a bad night here, for me. That was an understatement. I'm glad I recorded those messages for you. When I did. My power was now at 5%. Hey, do me a favor. Maybe sometime you could check inside those suits in the back room. I'm going to try to hold out until someone checks. Maybe it won't be so bad. It was strange, talking so calmly about if I would live or, more likely, die. If this phone caught my death on tape, the company definitely wouldn't let anyone hear it. I always wondered what was inside all those empty heads back there. I heard Freddie playing his tune in the kitchen. So he was in there. You know, I said as Chica moaned. I looked at my power. 0%. Oh no, I whispered. I shut my eyes as tightly as I could as an ear-shattering screech emerged from one of the demonic animatronics. The power went out. Which is why nature trails have been closed for the past year. If you have any information about a tall man in a suit appearing at any forest trail after dark, please contact police. And in the news again, one of the animatronic robots from the popular family restaurant, Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria, was found this morning at around 6 a.m. standing in the street outside. While it is rumored that the animatronic robots are left in a free-roaming mode at night, this remains unconfirmed. The manager and proprietor of the child-friendly pizzeria had this to say. Our security guard quit the other day, and we've been looking to hire a new one. It would appear that though somebody snuck inside and carried one of the animatronics outside, placing it in the street as a practical joke, without a security guard, we're left defenseless to these kinds of pranks. Freddy Fazbear's Pizza is rumored to be closing at the end of the month, and management seems to be struggling to keep the restaurant open. The restaurant has been a site of controversy and police activity ever since 5 children were found murdered in the back room, lured away from their parents by a man in a Freddy Fazbear mascot suit. Soon after that, 3 other children who snuck into the restaurant after closing were found murdered by a night janitor. The pizzeria has not employed another night janitor ever since. The kitchen was bustling with activity as everyone raced back and forth in preparation of what was to come. In addition to the usual making of pizza, there was a struggle to clean the restaurant before the CEO of Fazbear Entertainment himself could arrive to give a final statement on a popular topic as of late. would Freddy's be closing? The manager had gotten a call from some guy interested in a new security position, the night shift guy. He had asked the guy, someone named Schmidt, to come in later for an interview. Of course, the manager already knew he'd get the job. Nobody else was inquiring, and a new guard was needed, whether the restaurant closed or not. This was the last thing on his mind as the manager looked around nervously. In addition to thinking about what the CEO would say, he also kept watch over the many children running around. There was the usual crowd of the show stage where Freddy, Bonnie, and Chica were talking, but today seemed different. The manager wasn't sure why as he stared in the direction of the stage. And then it hit him. The kids were looking at each other, confused as the animatronics malfunctioned. The manager, who refused to ever contact a repairman, hurried over and climbed onto the stage. "It's okay, everybody," he assured the children and parents. "Freddy and his friends are just sleepy, that's all. We'll be back in a minute." Everyone seemed satisfied with that. Parents turned back to their kids, who were running around the pizzeria playing God knows what games. There was the usual group around the arcade, and the manager observed children asking their parents for quarters to play some of the games. He smirked to himself. Maybe Freddy should break down more often, he mused. The arcade is never that crowded. It never struck him as strange that all three animatronics had stopped at once. The manager opened up a panel on Freddy's back, exposing his endoskeleton as well as various wires. He noticed a dial marked AI set to 20, the highest setting. He twisted it back to 1. The manager poked around inside for a minute, jiggling wires and such to see if any were loose. He tugged on one wire, and Freddy's eyes lit up. He stood up straighter and began speaking. Hey, kids, it's your old pal, Freddy Fast. With a sound like power dying, Freddy went limp again. The manager jiggled the wire some more, but it seemed that it was firmly in place. He sighed. Things seemed so much simpler when we had that old Freddy mascot, he thought. He never broke down like this. I wonder why the kids didn't like his golden fur. I thought it was pretty snazzy, almost as much as that robot dog Sparky we had in development. But no, they want to have a female Bonnie instead of those. Just as well. Maintaining that golden fur and building a dog would have only cost us more money. He thrust the wire with all of his strength, and then Freddy moved. Bonnie and Chica moved in unison, which was strange because they were programmed separately, which is to say none of the animatronics were connected. If one broke down, the other two would continue without it. The manager didn't notice. All he knew was that the animatronics were working again. Yappa can't live off of pizza all the time, Freddy, Bonnie said, blinking back to life. You can't? Freddy and Chica asked in shock. The manager's satisfied smile turned to a gasp of horror as the animatronics stopped. They stood tall, an eerie stillness possessing them as they stared out into the audience, who assumed it was only more technical errors. The manager was no repairman, but he was certain nothing was wrong with the wiring. Absolutely nothing. If that was true, why were they acting like this? Freddy's mouth slowly opened, and then he began to scream. It was a loud, high-pitched scream, human-like almost, maybe even childlike. Kids began to cover their ears, crying out as parents rushed around, trying to find their kids among the mob that filled the party area of the pizzeria. Freddy's body began to violently shake as he continued to scream, and then Bonnie and Chica began to scream along with him, only intensifying the harsh, jolting sound. Now, all three were shaking violently as they screamed that unholy sound. The manager could only watch in stunned disbelief from where he knelt behind the three animatronics. Unless he was imagining it, Foxy was also screaming from behind the closed curtain at the out-of-order Pirate's Cove. "Oh, God, fix it!" a woman screamed at the manager as she wrapped her arms around her crying son. "Mommy, Daddy, make it stop!" wailed a little girl as she ducked under a table, hands firmly clasped over her ears. "It hurts! It hurts so much!" shouted a chubby boy as he raced toward the exit. "Why are they screaming? Why is Freddie screaming, Dad?" asked another little girl, her father covering her ears. "We're never coming back here again, ever!" exclaimed a mother as she led her children and husband out the exit. "Stop it, please, stop it!" cried a boy as he ran to his parents. Chaos was now the only word to describe the once happy atmosphere in Freddy's. Chairs were knocked down, party hats littered the floor, and tables were shoved toward the walls as parents either tried to find their kids through the swarm of people or led their kids to the exits. Pizzas were thrown, landing on the walls and leaving tomato sauce, cheese, and pepperoni coating the wallpaper. Arcade games were abandoned mid-game. The animatronics continued to scream, only for the noise to rise in intensity. Staff came racing out of the kitchen to see what was going on. The security guard, who was fortunate enough to be on the day shift, came racing out of his office only to turn pale at the carnage that was unfolding before him. "Everyone, please, calm down!" the manager cried, losing his calm exterior for the first time in years. "This is He was at a complete loss for words and finally shouted, "Everyone calm down! The screaming will finish shortly. It's only a technical error with the microphones or voice chips or—" The curtain around Pirates Cove opened, revealing Foxy was screaming as well. The damaged animatronic only added to the overall noise. The manager noticed that he wasn't spastically shaking like the other three. The screaming finally stopped, and the animatronics began talking normally again. "When you're eating, kids, be sure to eat plenty of kids. Green vegetables, kids," Chica told the audience with the usual minor voice box problems. "All of you young bunnies need to have your carrots," Bonnie chimed in. The manager sat, kneeling behind the animatronics, glumly staring at a deserted pizzeria. "I don't know whether we'll be closing or not," the manager announced to a small crowd of people outside the pizzeria. A crowd composed mostly of tired parents, excited kids, and angry patrons from the screaming incident that had occurred earlier. "But I do know that Freddy's is where you want to be. As a pizzeria that prides ourselves on family fun, we have no reason to close. The legal arguments, however, would say otherwise, but I digress. And now, presenting the CEO of Fazbear Entertainment, Mr. Cawthon." The manager stepped away from the microphone, and a man with a prominent beard walked up. He cleared his throat and began to speak. "It's been rough for us in these many years of service. Despite the gruesome deaths of 8 children within our fair establishment, as well as the incident in which one of our animatronics malfunctioned and bit out a chunk of a little girl's brain, not to mention rumors that Chica promotes child obesity, we've managed to stay afloat and provide quality family fun. However, no other companies want to purchase Freddy Fazbear Pizza thanks to our unfortunate history. And so, due to issues with funding," he paused for dramatic effect, "Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria will be closing by the end of the year." There was an outburst from the crowd, from angry and concerned parents alike, as well as questions shouted from the town's local reporter. "Children have grown up with Chica, Bonnie, and of course Freddy," Mr. Cawthon continued. "These characters will live on. In the hearts of kids, these characters will live on. Maybe someday we can find the money to go back into business, but for the foreseeable future, Freddy's will be closed by the end of the year. Yes, we will remain in business until then, but after that, even I'm not sure." The rest of the speech wasn't important, mostly an explanation about the company's financial problems, and hardly a soul in the audience was paying attention anymore. The only thing on everyone's mind, Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria was closing. Many years later. "So, have you got a crew on it?" "Of course. The repairmen are working on Bonnie right now. They've had to take off his face to get to some of the hard-to-reach wiring, but there hasn't been any trouble. Oh, good. We wouldn't want our past to come back to haunt us. This'll be a new restaurant, a new beginning for us. It sounds great, but what'll we do with the old animatronics? I'll put them in the parts and service area, just in case one of the new ones needs a piece or something. Did you say they removed Bonnie's face? Yeah? Sounds bad. Imagine if a kid walked in there and saw that. You should see the other ones. Well, do the new ones look good? The new ones look amazing, polished and ready to start. Good. Just another few weeks to make sure everything is working properly, and then Freddy Fazbear's is back in business.